The next presentation will be that by Mr. Michal Vodrážka from the Czech National Bank. He is going to speak about the regulation of crypto assets and about digital operational resilience. So we will listen to this presentation. Good morning. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to tell you something about our digital currency. And once again, I also want to repeat what has been said already, that I will present my opinions, not those of my employers. As to the agenda, I would like to speak about the context, that is the package of the European Commission for digital finance. In this, under the second point, I'd like to look at the crypto asset regulation, that is MiCA and TFR, that is the new regulations which will introduce new rules for crypto assets transfers. And under the third point, I'd like to speak about the regulation of the digital operational resilience, that is the DORA Act. The package of the European Commission for digital currencies is to be spoken about first. It is not quite recent because it was published in autumn 2020. It contains 4 legislative proposals. First of them is the markets in crypto assets, MiCA as of now. The second proposal is Digital Operational Resilience Act, that is DORA. Then we have pilot regime for market infrastructures based on distributed ledger technology. And in the context of this, we have the change directive. As to the points 3 and 4, the negotiation was faster than for MiCA and DORA. They've already been approved by the European legislators and should soon be published in the EU official journal. In the package, not only legislative proposals were contained, there were also non-legislative texts, namely a strategy for digital finance, which is first of the 2. It includes 4 areas. The effort to decrease the fragmentation of the single digital market, which means that digital services which are provided through internet should easily be provided across the border, and we could try to eliminate the problems which exist now in providing digital services across the border. The second point is the effort to adapt the EU regulation for the facilitation of digital innovations. How should it be adapted to facilitate digital innovations? The third area is the support to data-driven financial services, and the fourth area is, well, these are the positive proposals, and the fourth is aiming at the challenges and risks of digital transformation, in particular the resilience against operational risks. That is what I will be speaking about in the fourth point. There was also the renewed strategy for modern and safe retail payments. I will not speak about that because it's not very much in context with those topics we've been talking about. And should I sum it up in just one sentence, it is about support to be given to immediate payments, both in euros and in other national currencies of the EU, and to support the European payment schemes. If now you pay across the border in Europe, you usually use the American Visa or MasterCards. The long-term goal of the European Commission and of the ECB is to establish some European competitor to these payment cards. So this was the broader context, and now I would like to see the first point, that is the regulation of crypto assets, MiCA, market in crypto assets. Now we also have markets in financial instruments. So it is the acronym was inspired. As to the goals and of the context of this provision, it is a brand new regulation. No such regulation is existing in the European law, and its purpose is to regulate some of those cryptocurrencies which are not subject to the existing legal provisions of the EU on financial services. You will know ICOs. These are initial crypto offerings. Depending on how they operate and how the rights for the holders are set, such ICOs in some EU member states could be considered as a share, and the same regulation is applied to them. No further regulation is needed. In general, we are based on the so-called technological neutrality concept. So irrespective of what technology is used, whether it's digital or paper, the same services carry the same risk and should be regulated in the same way, irrespective of the technology. So this is the logic of the first point. Some of the crypto actives, like ICOs, could be structured sorry, there were some interferences. In the Czech Republic, there must be some material substance, or it must be in the deposit. It must be registered in the securities depository. So it works as a security, but unless it is in the blockchain, it does not have the same position. So the goal is to adapt the rules and to include those instruments which have not been covered by the same rules. The goal is also to establish the single rules for all services, for all providers of services which are in the context of crypto actives, like issuers of ICOs, and there are also rules which should precede the crypto active market manipulations. And that is something which we are looking forward to when it comes to regular markets, but it is all the more important for the crypto active markets because they go unregulated for the time being largely. Now there is another another proposal. It was targeting stable coins like Libra, which then was rebaptized as Diem or Diem. It was initiated by Facebook. You know that some time ago this project was suspended because of its failure, because also the European regulation was expected, but actually it fulfilled its goal even without entering in vigor. If we look at what the provision is going to regulate, there are the stable coins.
The most detailed action there concerns stable coins. There are crypto assets which declare they will keep a stable value because they are linked to a certain currency. You probably know Binance USD or Stepha. These crypto assets would be deemed tokenized electronic money. Something similar to a dollar or euro or Czech crown. in the case of it being very significant value of electronic money, the rules would be stricter than the ones we normally use. Another is data reference assets. It's linked to a basket of currencies or gold. And it's similar to e-money token, and other tokens are different from stable coins, and they are not financial or investment instruments. These would be some ICOs on which user tokens would be issued. There would be some commodity coming from the provider. Then the regulation sets a number of exceptions. The most important one was discussed in the European Parliament. The regulation does not does not concern NFT, non-fungible tokens. Also, the measure also can only concern partly only services connected to such assets. Also, financial instruments are accepted, which I already mentioned, such as these issued by central banks. Also, the regulation brings in a measure whereby the services connected to crypto assets would be supervised. If you, in the Czech Republic, if you provide such services, you have to be registered. You have to declare your existence to the financial authority. Nowadays, there are only licenses concerning avoiding money laundering or trade in arms, in weapons, but new way will be also a license obtained for trading such assets. It is more or less the same as in investment services. For example, consultancies, you will need a new license for it. I will not enumerate all 7 points. You can see them. The term for the license will be 2 years since the regulation. I'm coming back to the fact that the legislators focused on the project Libra by Facebook. In other so-called stable coins, the supervision will be performed on the European level. And the European authorities, EDPA and ESMA. And on the national level, the bodies to supervise will be used. Now, when these stable coins will be significant, the discussion goes on, but in the legislation, some level will have to be set, maybe on the depending on the number of people using that asset. Another thing of our regulation on crypto assets, which is less discussed, but also it will soon influence the sector, and that's the regulation on some processes accompanying the transfer of such assets. For money transfers, a rule has been in action for many years that the money must be accompanied by some pieces of information, identity of the payer who sends the money, and the dedication, that is, the person that receives money. And this could also apply to mediated transfers. Maybe some company manages your assets and you tell them that you want to transfer to your acquaintance named Jan Novak, and the company must then provide for the transfer to Mr. Novak, and somewhere that will be recorded, or the transfer will be accompanied by information that you sent this amount of assets to Mr. Novak. And there are rules from 2019 which should already be in force. Well, that will be slightly delayed. The significant thing about it is not known how to do this technologically. Such assets as Bitcoin is, you probably know that Bitcoin was not designed to be transparent as to what amount is sent from whom to whom. Now the regulation aims at providing for this, so that the international standard would be reflected, and the minimum requirement will also make the transfer more expensive. That's no doubt. And it will decrease the attractivity and competitiveness of other ways of payment. And that brings me to my last point. That's regulation of operational resilience, digital operational resilience of the financial sector. DORA is the acronym. In 5 points, let me look at it. It's a requirement for management of ICT in technologies and the financial market. I will only explain in short that some sectors have their rules of using the ICT. Mostly these are banks and insurance companies. There are, but maybe security traders do not have their duties well written, and the rules should be provided for in all the sectors in the same amount of detail. My second point or topic is rules for ICT outsourcing. Especially it concerns the usage of clouds. I will have a special slide on that. The third point is that a duty to test is introduced to show how resilient the product is on the financial market. Also, the duty is introduced to report all breaches to the relevant authority. Until now, that was only applied to those who provide financial services. And finally, that's not a duty really, but a possibility to attempt to support those who provide information on threats. To explain it, in the financial market, banks compete between themselves, and it is not taken for granted that we provide information to a competitor that there is this cyber attack performed based on the logics of market competition. It is not taken for granted that these institutions provide information. But logically speaking, it's good to provide that information. An attack may start with the biggest operator and goes down, or the contrary. There was, for example, a product that was able to get around two-factor verification. First, it was used for attacks that happened in the Netherlands, but it then spread to other countries, so it's good to provide that information. As for the amount or extension, it concerns all subjects in the financial market which are regulated by the European law. Also, auditors are put into that list, but probably that won't happen. And there is an attempt not to overburden the institutions. That's why the small information are also exempted, or those which are not regulated by the European financial law. For example, foreign currency exchanges in this country. You may read through it. You can look at the presentation later. Certainly, you will have the possibility to download it. But certainly, on the same level of detail, it will apply to everybody. As for ICT outsourcing, the regulation for the first time introduces a strict regulation of usage of cloud. Just like in the case of MICA, the most controlled were the issuers of stable coin, and here the providers of service are also put in. Such American companies which provide to European banks and insurance companies, they provide cloud services for them, and they should be strictly supervised, and also the content of contracts should be the part of it. What must be contained in an outsourcing contract, including limiting or terminating cooperation, and supervising bodies must be named, such as the Czech National Bank, and those who want to use outsourcing of ICT services, if they do not use one provider of cloud, they should make use of services of more than one provider. And in the bottom of the slide, you can see that the critical providers will be supervised by the European supervising bodies. Reporting is introduced. It was only used in payment contact, but now it will apply to all sectors of the market. Serious incidents should be reported on the national level, from which it will go, the report will go to the European level, so that other states are informed. And the information will be spread or distributed so that other countries, other states could get prepared, or other subjects of the market. And there will be some thought of whether to centralize such reporting on the European level. All subjects will be obliged to test their digital operational resilience. I have the requirements here written in English. Probably it's no sense to translate into Czech. Well, the translation does exist. The biggest discussion is expected around the requirement that the most significant subjects in the market were tested by penetration testing, which is based on the actual knowledge on how attacks happen So it's network penetration testing, whether something new will be invaded, or the Tiber EU instrument, which is used for years now. It's interesting. You can look through it, but I have to warn you, there are dozens or maybe hundreds of pages there. Thank you. And thank you for your speech. Questions now. First I'll ask, can we hear one? I can hear you, all right. It was very interesting. So I will read in terms of popularity. That is a question of a viewer who expresses persuasion or conviction that a regulation is needed. And basically he's asking, is there a significant difference between the EU and the USA? And what the differences are? I must confess that the situation, I do not quite follow the situation in the States. In the United States, I think the situation is that there is some regulation, but on, say, level of a state. In New York, you can get a license for 2 or 3 years now. I saw an article saying that the first license was issued in 2019. President Biden now works on it that this would be decentralized. In the Czech Republic, the supervising body is CNB. Now, President Biden asks those operating in the market to think of what the centralized supervision could be. Another question linked to it. Bitcoin, is there a possibility that it will become a legal instrument of payment in the Czech Republic? No, I can't imagine that we would introduce an circulation of Bitcoin and as a duty, like in Salvador. If there is something to it, it will get through by itself. If not, there is no reason to help. And doesn't the regulation slow down? For example, 2015, 847. Isn't this too much?
Some of the regulations may slow down the development. The Czech Republic introduced duty to identify clients using the cryptocurrency exchange services. So the regulation is there since 2018. That is the registration and the identification data, and the fact that you have to ask the client who he wants the cryptocurrency to be transferred to is yet another measure. I don't, well, it may not be quite, it may not be something that will make the trading easier, but there is a principle of technological neutrality, which means that if some activity generates risks which are comparable to some other technology, then the rules should be the same. If we think that some transfer is suspect, then we need to know why. And that is why we need to know certain data for cryptocurrencies as well. But sometimes the volumes which are being transferred are very huge, so we need to know it. I just recall the current geopolitical situation, and we certainly want the sanctions against Russia not to be avoided or shrunk away. there are more personal questions here. Do you own some cryptocurrency? Do you perform those transactions? And what, in your opinion, is the future of regulations and so on? Well, I do have some tiny bits of Bitcoin, or I had them. I bought them just to try it out. We also organized international seminars, so we wanted to demonstrate to some of our colleagues who were unable to imagine how the crypto purse may look like. And there was a Bitcoin ATM next to the place where the conference was held, and but I have to say that I'm rather conservative in my investments, so I don't really speculate on Bitcoins. What I had in those cryptocurrency, I largely spent it in the place where the conference was held for coffee and so on. So I think that I had no more than something like 4,000 crowns. How about taxation of cryptocurrency? Is there anything ahead? I'm not the right person to ask. I know that the Ministry of Finance and the tax authorities have published some position about the tax policy towards cryptocurrency. I know that the capital increment tax is applicable to crypto investments as well. So you just find on the Google. Well, there are many questions which are very interesting, but there are time constraints. Thank you very much for your presentation and for your contribution to the conference, and I will be looking forward to seeing you. Thank you for having me, and I want to say that there are some interesting posts or positions in the Czech National Bank and the Central Bank. So if they look for a job, they might visit us.